We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is, what is it, Thursday? And we have the good fortune, as we do commonly on Thursdays, to have Old Soul as a guest.
Hey
You're a
guys.
welcome. You're a welcome sight. I did the show myself yesterday, and I've been doing so many shows with other people. I'm getting lazy. That was fucking work yesterday. Jesus. So now Old Soul is with us, and Old Soul's got to bring us up to date on some stuff that was going on that we talked about last time. And she's going to have some insights about some of the bullshit going on currently. So, Old Soul, we were talking about, you tell us, you were talking about David, and you were going to send him the video of the podcast. So bring us, tell people what it was, and then bring us up to date.
Yeah, so he's a Trump supporter. I wouldn't say he is the hardcore Trump supporter, but he was on that other side of the fence.
Right.
He just didn't, whatever. But he seemed like he was straddling the fence because he looked at it when he watched the video, he clarified to me that it's not that he doesn't believe in like public assistance or anything like that. He just feels that there's too many people taking advantage of the system. With the reason that it made a turn when it comes to Trump is because he truly believes that Trump has the money to pay for it. But why would I pay for it when somebody else could pay for it? So he's looking at it as welfare versus like, I guess charity would be the only
Right.
comparison to that. So in his mind, Trump has the money, but why should he have to pay for a witch hunt or people that's just coming after him for nothing? So
Right.
that's the clarification that I guess I've misrepresented that or whatever.
Okay.
So he watched the video. He heard what you said about corporate welfare, et cetera. And he couldn't wrap his brain around it. He wanted an example. He said, well, when the next time you go and ask him for an example, I was like, well, I don't have to ask Boomer for an example. I can give you one right now. And so the example that I gave him was in 2023, the great value brands at Walmart, they raised the prices on those. So these are generic Walmart brands, and
Right.
people will buy the generic because they can't afford the brand. Well, they raised the prices on the generic around the same time that the brands were raising their prices. And what that ended up doing is it raised Walmart's profit margin like 93% or something like that. At the end of 2023, they made an extra 10 point something billion dollars.
Right.
And what they did with that money was they gave like their stockholders and stuff like that, they gave them like buybacks and, all that other kind of stuff. But when you think about why they spent that money on their stockholders, on themselves, and all that stuff, where when you look at companies in America, the top two companies in America who has the most employees on welfare is Walmart and McDonald's. So why would Trump come in and give Walmart a tax break and they're not giving their employees any more money and their employees are not choosing to live off of the system? They have no choice because their employer will not give them a raise. So you're giving Walmart a tax break while their employees live off of the system.
Right.
And I think Walmart has like 2.1 million employees, over half are in the US. So if you didn't give Walmart these tax breaks or this corporate welfare, as you put it, then the employees wouldn't be living off of the system if you paid them a living wage. So
Right.
when you think about the system being anchored down and people being on a system that don't need to be, no, those people don't need to be on a system, but they're forced to be because of the corporate welfare from taxes from Republicans and Donald Trump. That's what Boomer was talking about. And he kind of got quiet on that one. He didn't have anything to say. So then I challenged him to give me, because he gave me that challenge. So I told him, name one policy that Trump is promoting that doesn't involve taking away rights from somebody or kicking brown people out. Just one policy that will benefit the American people. Guess what he said, which is the dumbest thing. Trump's been at his rallies and stuff saying 100% tariffs on China, da 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 da. So I told him, I'm not going to give you the answer.
Hold on a second. I lost your voice here.
I had a
Okay,
call
there we
come
go.
in.
Oh, no,
I
no
said,
problem.
I told him, look up tariffs and you tell me who benefits and who hurts from tariffs. So of course he looked it up and he saw taxpayers and consumers are the ones that hurt from tariffs when you put it on goods from other countries. So how does that help the American people when we, the taxpayers and just regular citizens, have to pay more because Trump wants to put tariffs on America? And so
Yeah.
he looked it up, and I even gave him an article to Fox Business. And it was like Eric said the last time he was on the show, you have to get to the middle of the article before they give you the truth.
Right.
I told him, read the entire article. And then he was like, well, I'm doing some more research. I'm doing some more research. And he could not find a single example, a single outlet, no matter how right wing it was, that did not specifically say that Trump's tariffs on China is a detriment to the economy for consumers and taxpayers. And it was advising him of what happened to the farmers when Trump came into office and started doing all those crazy tariffs, how bad it hurt farmers.
Right.
And he said, this is something that I have to think about. And I haven't heard from him since.
You have to think about it. I don't know what you have to think about. It's hurting the American public and the economy. There's nothing to think about. The only reason you want to think about it is because it's contrary to what you've believed before. Now you got a little lesson from old soul. You should accept it and fucking move on.
I gave him like a multiple choice in a text message. I was like, okay, so what's worse? A, Trump has absolutely no idea what a tariff is.
Right.
B, he knows what a tariff is, but he has no problem with it hurting the American people and benefiting no one except for China and the other countries that he will put these tariffs on. And I didn't hear anything back from him. So I thought that last text message, maybe it was kind of like too big of a dig or whatever. So my daughter, she had to explain it to me that the process that he's going through right now is kind of like a decompressing process. Anytime you come out of like any kind of abusive situation, anytime you're dealing with grief, that type of thing, like there's stages, it's a process. So don't like try to reach out to him or push it. Let him work through his process however he feels he has to work through it. But I did send her and her boyfriend to go check on him because I was worried, because it seems like a lot of information is coming at him all at once and he's starting to realize it. And so I don't know where his frame of mind was. And they went, they checked on him and they said he was cool, but he has to go through this process of realizing that for the last, almost 8 years at this point, watching certain media outlets, listening to Trump, listening to people that he supported and voted for, pretty much there's not one thing he can name that's been true of what he's been told.
No.
And that's got to be difficult because he's ruined relationships with his family, with his friends. He doesn't have any biological children, but he was really, really close to his ex-wife's daughter. Like they were best friends, and she ended up cutting him off because of it. So you have to think that he has to sit in that upon that realization. So I haven't talked to him. He hasn't reached out, but I am giving him his space to let him process it however it is that he wants to process that, or however he needs to process that, shall I say.
Well, my experience with these people has been that they refuse to admit they're wrong ever. They refuse to walk back anything they've said. If they do anything, they just get quiet.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about that. I don't
yeah,
talk about politics anymore. Well, maybe you should have thought of that 6 years ago before you destroyed your fucking family.
yeah,
I don't have a lot of sympathy for these people because everybody in this country has the ability to look into something and find out if something is true. And if you just look at the headlines or listen to some talking heads on a bullshit fucking news channel, and that's all
yeah,
you do, you're just fucking lazy. And I don't really feel sorry for them.
yeah,
Um, I have some disdain for them because what they're doing, because they're so unaware, they're indirectly damaging this country. That's why I've got some people in my family that were Trump humpers or are Trump humpers. And somebody said, well, when we get through all this, then you can all come back together. I can't. I
yeah,
mean, I mean, if you just called me an asshole and said something about me, that's one thing. I can get over that. But when you knowingly tried to destroy the country and the democracy, that's too far. I can never trust you.
yeah. I look at it as there's a difference between ignorance and willful ignorance. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because there is some people who you do tell them the truth and you do expose it to them, and they don't care. It doesn't matter at all what anybody says, what anybody does. They're just going to dig their heels into it. So that's kind of like a willful ignorance person. Like whatever you tell me, I'm going to receive that information and I'm going to accept it because that's what I want to hear. And then there's
Right.
some people that just don't know any better. I think he kind of like fell in the middle until it got to a point where he couldn't ignore it anymore. Um, and I don't know what process he's in right now, but he's shut down, like completely shut down. Just he don't want to talk about it. He ain't said nothing. He ain't reached out. I did send him one text to let him know, hey, I'm here. If you need anything, reach out. And then I just left it at that because, pushing him doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do. So I'm not gonna push back anymore on that, but
Well,
we'll see.
he's probably mad because he has been proven wrong. Last thing a guy like that wants to do is be proven wrong by a woman of
Mm,
all people. They don't fucking like that. Try being married
not,
for 40 years. You're wrong all the time. And my wife will point it out all the time. Hell, my granddaughter will point it out all the time. Um,
could
you
you
know,
imagine, like, with the tariffs, that never dawned on me that they don't know what it is. When Trump says, I'm going to tax 100% tariffs on China, until he said that, I didn't know that these people, they didn't know what that was. I
no,
thought that they just in the crowd and they're just cheering and clapping because, it doesn't matter if it's BS or not, they're going to cheer and clap for it. But it never dawned on me that they're clapping and they're cheering because they think that 100% tariffs on China is a good thing, not
no.
thinking that it could bankrupt us. So from him, I did learn that these people have no idea what a tariff is. They don't know how it's going to impact them, even though we watched it happen with the farmers. That
Yeah,
maybe they just didn't know that, they didn't see that, they didn't understand it. I don't know, but apparently when they're at the rallies and they're cheering and clapping, they really do think 100% tariffs on China is a good thing. Or maybe they just think, ooh, China, bad, and then that's the only thing that they compute. I don't
you,
understand how you don't know that.
10% tariff isn't going to work on anything because they're just going to pass along um, the cost of doing business, and like you say, we're going to pay it. Now, 100% tariff might have an impact on China because people just won't buy the shit anymore. Not at 100% tariff. I mean, it's a stupid thing to do. It should not be done. But you put 100% tariff on it, and they send it over, marking it up 100%. Nobody's going to buy the shit, no
Yeah,
matter how much they like it. So that would hurt China to a certain extent, but it hurts all the people that are used to buying that product, are loyal to that product, and want the product. He's just basically taking it out of their hands and making it impossible for China or whoever to sell the product. The whole concept is just stupid,
yeah.
and it doesn't work. And Donald Trump is so simple-minded. He thought, well, I'm going to put a 10% tariff on it, so China's going to have to pay an extra 10%. Yeah, that's not how it works.
It's not like just hearing you say that, it's the funniest thing to me. And even if it stopped people from buying it from China, it opens up the door to just greed because all
Uh,
it would take is like a Elon Musk or someone like that to swoop in because okay, now you can't get it from China. The only person that you can get it from is me, and I can charge whatever the heck I want. You know what
right,
I mean? So it's just kind of like, in what world would 100% tariff on China be a good thing? Yet
right.
people at his rallies, they cheer for it. And I thought they just cheer because it doesn't matter what he says, they're going to cheer. It never even dawned on me that they have no idea what it means. And when he said that, I just kind of like laughed when I read the text. And I'm like, is he for real? And then
Yeah.
I had him look it up himself. I even gave him, hey, Checkbox Business. Here's a great article explaining. Read the whole article. And then he kept looking and looking and looking, and he could not find anyone, no matter how right wing it was, that didn't say how bad of an idea that was.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of the articles, they bury the information in the article. They don't say it up front. They just get a catchy headline and they say a bunch of BS and then they just bury the correct information in the article.
I don't know if this came out after we talked last or not, but the whole idea of the courts, the appellate courts, dropping Donald Trump's bond from 464 million to 175 million
Yeah,
dollars. I'm not convinced that that is great for Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump already has a $91 million bond. Now he's going to have to get one for 175 if he can even do it. I think what
yeah,
Donald Trump really wanted out of this was to not have to put up any bond and be able to stay the whole thing until after the appeal, give him another 3, 6, 8, 12 months. I don't know that giving him that $175 million lowered to $175 million was what Donald Trump was looking for. And the funny thing is, you don't hear him ranting and raving about it, how he won and all that stuff. He's been kind of quiet about it. So coming up in like 7 days, a week or so, he's going to have to come up with the money, and it'll be interesting to see if he can. Maybe he can, but what people have to understand is even if it's delayed as far as taking his properties and stuff, he now
mm,
has $265 million tied up that he's never getting back because he won't win the appeals. That's not a positive thing. That puts him in a bad fucking situation. He's got a campaign and legal fees to pay too. He doesn't need $250 million tied up in fucking escrow for appeals.
no. When that E. Jean Carroll, when he posted the bond for her, I thought that is the best thing that he could have done. Is because now once that appeal is denied, she doesn't have to go through all this crap of trying
Right,
to collect her money. She could just it's just in a pot and they're just gonna give it to her. So
right.
that was like that was the best thing that he could have did for her, whether he realizes that or not. The way that I look at the 175 is not good for him because he's not bragging, he's not posting about it, and he's quiet about it.
Yeah.
He hasn't said anything about it, pretty much. But he is the king of distraction and deflection because now it's all about want Marshawn and all that other stuff that he has going on. But his supporters, they take their cues from him
Well, that,
because at first they were like excited, and then when they saw that he wasn't excited about it, then they shut up about it as well.
right,
So the fact that Magaland as a whole is quiet about it, whether he can post it or not, it lets me know that it is a burden for him. And either way, it's putting him in such a bind. I think that it's more feasible for him to come up with this amount, but I don't know if it's probable, if that makes sense. So
no,
it's possible, but not probable.
yeah, I don't know. When you listen to the media, they're saying he'll probably be able to come up with that. Well, where are you getting that? I mean, he struggled to get the 91 million. Now he's got to get
Mhm.
another 175 million. He's got to get a bond, but nobody wants to give him a bond. So you better have 175 million in cash. And based on what we've seen and how he's hemorrhaging money with legal fees and the campaign and all this other bullshit, um, I don't know where he's getting the money from. I'm not so sure that that's going to put him in a better situation.
I don't think it's a day by day with Trump. I think it's more of like a minute by minute with
It
him.
is, yeah,
And I think with the E. Jean Carroll, he like pulled every string and every resource that he had to post that bond. And so what does that leave him with? If you took absolutely everything that you had to give it over here, then you have nothing left. I
right,
think the only way that he will come up with it is if someone bails him out. The scary part about that is who bails him out? Who is he going to be indebted to?
right,
Now, not for him, because if he borrows the money from some of these other places, they're not going to play with him like that. They're going to
yeah,
give him some cement shoes and throw him in the ocean somewhere.
right,
But
right,
as far as the country goes, and us still and him selling secrets, and I'm still not sure if he's getting briefed or not. As far as that goes, that could be dangerous for us, and that's the scary part about that. Is who is he going to get it from, and what's the cost going to be to us?
right. Well, and that's the other thing people have been talking about. When Brett Kavanaugh was being appointed to the Supreme Court, he had a lot of debt, and that is
Hmm.
a dangerous thing. It opens up people to blackmail and all kinds of shit. And then all of a sudden, all his debt disappeared from somebody we don't know who. But now we have Donald Trump, who's so deeply in debt. We know that
Yeah.
from his taxes. We know that from the bonds. How big a risk is Donald Trump when it comes to being president of the United States when he's in debt over his head?
He's a danger when he wasn't that far underwater. It's hard to think of how much more, like, I don't try to make my mind go there of how dangerous he is, because it's so scary. You know what I mean? Like, I know people
Yeah,
say you have to scare people to vote and all this other kind of stuff. Like, I don't want to be more scared than what it already is. Like, we're already living in a purge. And I just feel like they take the purge and then they just drop Freddy Krueger and Jason and Michael Myers and everybody right in the middle of it. Like, how scared do you want me to be?
right, right.
People don't need to be that scared to the point to where they traumatized. You know, we still got to make it to November. We're not trying to traumatize people. Let's just tell them the truth. Make sure they get their butts out there to vote. We do what we have to do. Like, I think we're scared enough as it is. It's it's just crazy. I don't want to scare anybody any more than what they already are.
No,
I don't
I
want to do
don't.
that.
I don't either. And we get those emails from people saying, "I think you're wrong. All is lost. We're gonna do this and do that, and it's terrible." And some people said you shouldn't be so positive because then people won't vote. And to me, that's insulting to the audience here. We all know what's at risk here. We all know. And whether it's positive information or negative information, we all know what we have to do. I'm not going to insult my audience by saying, I don't really believe this, but I'm going to scare you just to make sure you vote. That's a bullshit way to do things. That's the way the media outlets and the politicians do it. They're constantly scaring people. We can't continually scare people forever. It's a
You know how we
it's abusive.
it is abusive. It's very abusive. Um, Psychologically, it takes a long time to undo that type of damage.
Yeah,
We still haven't been able to deal with what we went through with the Trump administration because he's still out there. You know, we still have to deal with this. It's like an ongoing threat. So you're on edge all the time.
right.
But there is proof that you don't have to scare people. You just have to give them the truth and let them see what it is. All you have to do is look at the special elections, and you don't even have to look that far. Look at what just happened in Alabama. What? You know, like
Well,
Alabama, a
yeah.
deep, deep red district. This woman ran before and lost by 9 points. And now she out here winning by double digits just by saying, I'm that person that's not going to allow them to take your rights away.
Right. And she also had her own story that when she was younger, she had a child that was underdeveloped and wasn't going to survive and putting her at risk. And she had to make that heart-wrenching decision. And
Mhm.
and that's why I've said all along, that's just one little legislative seat in Alabama. But the fact of the matter is that that issue, the abortion issue, is going to be the one thing that causes the Republicans the most problem. They need to make that one of the top talking points and keep talking about it. If you want your rights taken away, if you want your health care to put you at risk, then vote Republican. But if you don't want
Mhm.
that, vote Democrat. It's a very simple choice, and I think the abortion issue is the key thing that's going to cost the Republicans a lot of fucking seats.
That and also the Republican Party are so extreme at this point that people are starting to feel the effects of their policies and what they're doing, what they did with IVF. People were feeling that because you had people out here who wanted children, who were trying to have children, and you took that right away from them. On top of that, when you have Tuberville and what he did, it caused the state, who was in desperate need for job opportunities and a military base out there, because of his ignorance and what he was doing, it cost them that. They felt that. They feel that in that state. So even like some of these other states where they have the infrastructure projects going on, and Biden has his signs up and he's posting and he's telling people this infrastructure project is here because of me and my administration. Your person did not want to vote for this. So if they would have had their way, you wouldn't have your job. You wouldn't be able to pay your bills this month. You wouldn't have been able to get off of government assistance. So you can point out to facts to where it affects them positively from the Biden administration and negatively versus how their congressperson is voting for this stuff. So when
Right.
they feel it and they see it, it makes it so much harder for them to go against their own best interest, even though they do that already. But when it's something that you can't tell them, this infrastructure project is not benefiting you. Fox News cannot tell them that. Marjorie Taylor Greene cannot tell them that. Why? Because now they have a job and they haven't had a job in 5 years. Now they have broadband where before they had, I remember going to Memphis, Tennessee with my ex, and he would always prepare me for drop spots. I had no idea what the heck is a drop spot. And there's just certain areas in the state where they just don't have internet service there. That it just is what it is. So
Wow.
me coming from where I'm from, I'm like, well, what happens if there's an emergency in a drop spot? What happens if this or that? He's just like, hey, you got to make it work. So it's just kind of like when Biden brings broadband to their state and they don't have these drop spots anymore, they can feel that, they can know that. You don't have to scare them. Point it out to them, tell them that. When was the last time you had a phone call drop since Biden put the broadband in your state?
Well, the
You know,
thing
you can
is,
tell them your kid isn't getting funding to eat this summer because the person you voted for said, you know what, poor people, they just too fat. They don't need free food. You know what I mean? So it's just
right.
kind of like point that out. You don't have to scare them. You have to just tell them this is the policy. This is how it's benefiting you. This is what they're going against, and that's how it's going to hurt you.
When people say you're being too positive about it, it's not like I'm making shit up or lying. I'm telling you the
Right.
facts as I know them. And
Mhm.
I think everybody would agree that it's important to know all the facts. I'm just telling you shit that nobody else is telling you. It's not that I'm lying to you to give you hope, pointless hope. That's not the case. The facts are the facts, and I'm going to tell it to you. And if people think that makes people too hopeful and they're afraid they're not going to vote, well, then you don't know who you're fucking talking to. Because I don't agree with that at all. I think people are smart. I think they are more awake, more aware of politics these days than ever in my lifetime. And that's the good news about it. People are paying attention.
Mhm. And I think it's like a perfect time to throw in one of my grandmother's quotes.
Go ahead.
Don't let their ignorance be your burden.
Right. Absolutely.
Do, do not take that on. Don't do it. It's not worth it. And it's too much of a distraction. You know what I mean? You absorb that and you don't need to. Right now, we're worried about looking at Trump and his trials and if he can pay his bills and all this other kind of stuff. And nobody is talking about the 2025 budget that Republicans put out there. Some people are, but it's not as big as it should be. When you have people talking about canceling health insurance for people, when you have them talking about raising the age of to retire, Social Security, they want to get rid of Medicaid and all this other stuff, right? And it's just like we're taking on the burdens of ignorance instead of focusing on the real issues and the real problems. And what that ignorance allows us to do is to easily be distracted. And I refuse to just take on ignorance as my burden. They're ignorant, that's their burden. I have to leave that over there because I can't get distracted from what it is that I'm trying to do. And I think that's a good piece of advice to tell anybody that's feeling like that. Don't make their ignorance your burden. Like,
Right.
don't even feed into that. It's difficult because it gets to be sometimes too. But you can't allow it to consume you. I think
No,
that's a better way to put it.
absolutely not. And Donald Trump is even going out now and talking about ACA and how he wants to cancel it and how he has a better plan for health care. Well, that's
Yeah,
funny.
to be fair to what?
We heard that before for 4 years and he never came up with a
Mhm.
single thing. Not a single thing. Now, an average intelligent person would not buy his shit after having gone through 4 years of lies and bullshit. Now, there'll be some people that say, oh, see, he's got a good idea. Donald Trump never had a fucking good idea. Donald Trump never accomplished anything for the people of this country, but he's kind of panicking at this point. He is willing to say anything. He's throwing shit against the wall, hoping something sticks. He will talk about anything, no matter how stupid it is, or how ridiculous it is, or how it can be pointed out that he's lied before about this. Doesn't matter. He's just flailing now, and he's throwing everything he can against the wall.
Yeah, you know what the most egregious, because I remember seeing someone who had a t-shirt that says repeal and replace Obamacare, because that was like their slogan back then.
Right,
Back
right.
then, it was like repeal and replace. That was the whole big slogan, even though now he's saying he didn't say that, but whatever. Um, it what made it so at first it was just like it's ignorant, it's stupid, he's not gonna be able to do it, whatever. But when he was like actually saying that, in the middle of a pandemic, when people needed health insurance the most, that's when he wanted to take it away from them. That's when he wanted to mess with it. That's when he wanted to play around with it. Instead of worrying about these people who need this health insurance and how to make it better for them, the only thing that he could do is say, Obama did this. I don't like it. I want to take it away. He didn't think about anything or anybody else. And when he, like in the middle of a pandemic, to me, it was just like so egregious. And I was just like, I couldn't wrap my mind. Like, how could you sit here and watch 1,000 people a day dying?
Right.
And you want to sit there and take away health insurance? I didn't even
Well,
understand how he had supporters after that. And
well,
half of the people that support him were using Obamacare. Like, I didn't get it. I still don't get it.
well, Donald Trump is just like all the other Republicans. They're not for anything. They don't have any answers. They don't have any strategies. They don't have any plans. All they are is against anything a Democrat does, whether it be Obama or Biden or whoever the hell it is. That's their whole strategy. Let's not let them win and let's try to make them look bad. And unfortunately, in Biden's term, they've had a hell of a time doing that because Joe Biden has looked good. He's accomplished a lot of things, and trying to pin things on him hasn't worked either. They've been embarrassed every time they tried. You would think after doing something over and over again that you might want to try something else if you've been completely unsuccessful. But the Republicans are dumb motherfuckers. They will keep doing this and they will fail over and over again.
Yeah, you know how they say Sleepy Joe, he can't barely stand up, he can't walk, blah, blah, blah. It's like, if he can't walk, he's just running circles around y'all. So maybe he not walking around y'all, he's just running circles around y'all. I saw in the bill proposal that they had, and I haven't read the whole thing, but part of what's in there, did you know that they want to cancel, you know how Biden right now, he is allowing for Medicare to negotiate the drug prices?
Right.
They want to cancel that. So
And
you know how they have that $35 cap on insulin? They want to cancel that and then allow it to, I guess, go back up to whatever price it was. And you know, if you allow them to do that, they're going to raise it to the point because they're going to be like, okay, for the last like 2 years, we couldn't charge X amount of money. So now we have to raise it extra high so we can earn those profits that we missed out back on. They're
yeah,
not going to care about seniors who can't afford their medications. And it's not just insulin, it's a bunch of other medications on there too. I remember the EpiPen and how Elizabeth Warren took them to task for that. These are children who have allergies and their parents can afford EpiPens. Why would you put a parent in that position? It's just it's
yeah.
just so inhumane how they
Nothing
I
they
don't
do
know.
makes any sense. Nothing they do makes any sense. Their strategies are poor, and it's just really pretty fucking
But like
ridiculous.
how greedy can you be though? Like if you have $10 million in your bank account and you have money, your money is making money at this point. You don't have to work. Like your grandchildren's children don't have to work. That's generational wealth that you've created, right?
Right.
How much more money do you need? Do you really have to take EpiPens away from children? Do you really have to make insulin be unaffordable for the elderly people? Do you really have to make it difficult for people to pay rent? Like, how much more money do you need?
Yeah, that's a good point. Um, um, I'll be honest with you, old soul. If I had $10 million in my bank,
Yeah.
I'd say, old soul, I'm busy tonight. I'm in the Caribbean. Let's try to catch up whenever I get back.
No, you wouldn't. You still sitting here cussing out Republicans exactly like to say.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. But it's nice to think about and having $10 million. But um, we just have to. I think we're doing a good job. And when I say we, I mean we as reasonably minded folks. I think they're doing a good job finally with the narrative and getting
Mhm.
this information out. I think Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are hitting it pretty hard, and I think it's getting some traction. I think it's got to heat up even further down the road as we get closer to November. But I think the Democrats are doing the right thing. They might want to ramp it up a little bit, but I think we're on the right track.
Yeah, I don't know who is handling Joe Biden's social media, but It's like dark bread to 24/7, you know?
There's some snarky motherfuckers, I tell you that.
I'm like, they attacked him as like a political candidate and as a man, like in one fell swoop. I don't know who's handling his social media page, but whoever it is, they just go for the throat. It's like,
I
and his ego cannot handle that very well. He's misspelling words. And, well, he
oh yeah.
always misspell words, but it's so blatant. I forgot what the last post of his I read. I think I saw it like on one of M. Midas Turns Exports post, and I was just like, "What is this saying?" It was so weird when he was denying that he wanted to replace Obamacare. Whatever that post was like, it was only a handful of words that I could read. It was just insane. Like,
And
does
it's
he proofread it before he sends this stuff out? Does he have an assistant that sends it out? And if so, whoever that assistant is needs to be fired.
I don't
It's
think
insane.
I don't think anybody looks at it before he sends it out. And Donald Trump is such a narcissist. He types it out and he thinks it's brilliant and he's ADHD. So he just punches that shit out. He assumes it's perfect, like the perfect phone call. So, but he's right. He's not only misspelling words, he's writing words that don't even exist.
Right.
I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. He talks about his education. He's a former president and he's making shit up as he goes.
I, his niece in her book when she said that they would pay students to take his test, I believe it.
Oh yeah.
I believe it. There's no way that he got the level of education that he's claiming that he has. By the way, he still hasn't released his transcripts, but that's neither here nor there. But I do believe that other people were taking the test for him. There's no way that he passed. I can't even remember. I don't even think the third grade without somebody helping him out. I just don't see it.
No, absolutely not. I mean, this motherfucker would have to study for a urine test. Just how to get it done.
Even I know how to get around a urine test. Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah, but if your whole life is just wearing a diaper, you just
You
go
know,
whenever you go. I mean,
and
fuck.
he passed his intellect on to his sons. Such
Oh
a nice
wow.
gift.
Yeah, these people are not the sharpest people in the world, and it's going to be so disappointing for the people that follow them when they
Hmm.
finally realize how just incredibly dumb they are. I mean, we started when he became president, people said, "Oh, he's playing 3D chess and he's doing this. It doesn't make sense to us, but he's way above us." This motherfucker has limited intelligence. He really does. I mean, if he was somebody that worked with me, I'd try to
Yeah.
get him fired because they're incompetent in just
It would
day-to-day
be
fucking
difficult
life.
to do with it.
Oh hell no. Oh hell no. If Eric or Don Jr. were my son, I'd probably go in the garage, start my car, and just sit there until it's over because I failed miserably in raising children like Donald and Eric. I mean, Jesus Christ. But when you consider the fact that Donald Trump is a dumb motherfucker, it's the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. People will finally understand that. I'm surprised that they haven't already. It's really been a slow learning curve for a lot of people, just who
Hmm.
Donald Trump is and what his intentions are. And I don't know if it's like we were talking about before, whether people just refuse to admit they're wrong or they just don't get it. I don't understand it. I hope they're just being stubborn. They can't be possibly that stupid.
I think that some of it would be I didn't go through all this for nothing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I didn't give up my family for Donald Trump to be a fraud. I didn't, you know, donate money for Donald Trump to be a fraud. I didn't come all this way for it to not be true. So I think in a lot of their minds, it's kind of like a point of no return. Like, I've already come this far. I might as well see it all the way to the end, without realizing that you can always correct course and you could always fix it. It only
right,
gets harder the further along you go.
right,
You know, I don't think that any of these people want to give their loved ones a talking point of, well, the only reason you want to come around now is because, Donald Trump is in jail or Donald Trump is in the news. It's pretty insulting. I think it's more it's more forgiving if you just say, "Hey, I apologize," or "I was wrong about this or that," and you're making a choice to come back to your family and be that person that you used to be versus you were forced to do it.
They
And
won't
I
ever
think
do
maybe
that
if they
though.
look, yeah, I think maybe if they looked at it that way, it could help. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but then you have to have them think logically and use common sense, and they lack all of that. Like I've told you before, I have a excuse me, I have a bit of a cold thanks to my wife. I've probably given her some colds too. So, but um, I had a friend who was a former business partner, and he was a big Trump humper, and we'd argue. And now when I see him, he goes, I don't have time to think about politics anymore. He's smart enough. He went to fucking Notre Dame. He can stand up and say, Mike, I was wrong. I'm sorry, but he can't do it. Oh, I don't know what's going on. I'm just not paying attention to it. And that's pretty much what will happen with most of the people that we've come up against in our families and in our businesses and friends and stuff. They will never admit they're wrong. They'll just say, I'm
Mm.
not paying attention to it anymore.
Yeah, that's the sad part about watching David, just to see him just shut down.
Right.
That's it. Like, I'm not gonna text you back. I'm not gonna call you back. No, that's it. If somebody said, "Hey, I'm here. If you need me, just letting you know," you could just say, "Okay, thank you." You can say anything, but just not to say nothing at all. I'm like, I don't
Well,
know, but I do think that's got to be difficult for the other person to just. I mean, when you live a lie for like 8 years, that's got to be pretty difficult too. So,
and I'm not saying David's a narcissist, but with Donald Trump, who is a narcissist, to tell them they're wrong and prove
mm,
that they're wrong, that may be the most devastating thing to happen to them. They don't know what to do with that. They'll never
yeah,
own up to the fact that they're wrong, but when they can't wiggle their way out of it, they'll usually clam up or bolt or do whatever. And I'm sure that's how some of these people are. When you said, I'm not going to go through all this and find out I was wrong. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you're going to find that fucking out. You may not want to admit to it or own up to it, but you fucked around and now you're going to find out.
yeah. I just it's the opposite for me. Like if I get something wrong and someone says, "Hey, that's wrong," whatever, I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know that. Thanks for letting me know." You know what I mean? Because now I know for myself. And B, I'm not out here telling people the wrong stuff. Like, thank you for letting me know. I'm not offended by that at
Yeah,
all.
no, I'm
It's
not.
so weird that people, I don't know if it's just egotistical or if it's just being prideful. I don't know what that's about, but it's not even like admitting you're wrong. It's just like, "Hey, thank you for giving me the right information. I appreciate that." Or even if you say, "Oh, my bad, I didn't know that." Nobody is holding you like at fault for not knowing what you didn't know. Like you didn't know it, now you do. Okay, now if somebody tell you the truth and you still telling lies, that's different. But if you
Yeah,
say something that's wrong and then you know the right information and you fix that, nobody's holding you at fault for that. The only time you're like held at fault is when you know the truth and you still keep lying anyway. That's the difference. I didn't know, now I do, versus I know now, but I'm still going to tell you a lie anyway. That's the difference there. And I don't know where that disconnect is with some of them, or maybe it is just pride and ego.
you know,
I guess that's all it can be.
I just realized something. People talk about how they like the show with you and I doing the show, and I know a lot of it's you, but I think it's the balance or the contrast. You're a
Mm.
compassionate, decent person. I'm an asshole. So it kind of balances out. I'll get in your face and tell you you're a fucking idiot, and you'll do it in a much more pleasant, decent, human way. So
There's
I
always big cults. We're always gonna have them. I think I don't know. I could never imagine either of us being caught up in a cult, but I can see myself going to like a Scientology building and being like, "Oh, well, I'll call you guys and let you know," and then just throwing the card away. And I
yeah.
can see you going into that same building and being like, "You guys are effing crazy. I'm out of here." Like,
That's probably a good example. You would be nice about it, and I would be everything but nice about it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I tell you, old soul, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Old Soul is with us today. It's always a pleasure to have Old Soul. She gives us a lot of information that I don't have, and that is valuable. Old Soul's more of a detail person. She knows all the facts. She's a researching fool. I'm more shoot from the hip and talk about things in what am I trying to say? Generalities. And like I said prior to the break, that she's diplomatic and compassionate and just a nice, decent person. And I'm more the asshole. So that's why we get the good balance on the show whenever she's on. I wanted to bring up this whole thing with Donald Trump. Now, when they dropped his bond to $175 million, people were running around like their hair is on fire. Oh, Donald Trump did it again. He wins again. But on that same day, he was in court and he was trying to get a delay on his upcoming Manhattan District Court criminal trial. It was tentatively set for April 15th. He went to court. They tried everything they could to get it delayed, and they even pissed off Judge Marchand during the process, and apparently he took them to task. But the good news is that the court or the trial does start on April 15th, and that's pretty solid at this point. It's going to be hard for them to delay it any further. And then
Yeah.
Judge Marchand put a gag order on Donald Trump, which not surprising given Donald Trump's history. What was your thought about the gag order when he issued it?
I don't think that this is the judge that neither Trump or his, I don't even know if I can call him his legal team at this point, but
Right.
his legal spokespeople, because that's all they do.
Yeah.
Even in their court filings, it's never like case law cited or anything. It's like a Donald Trump post. But I just have a feeling, and I kind of gave up on judges at this point. Like, it's going to be what it's going to be with these people. I'm not going to invest too much into these judges. But I do think that Judge Marchand, I don't think he's the one that they really want to play with like that.
I don't think
I
so. And
do.
I think a
I don't
criminal
think he's
trial is a
hesitant.
different situation too. Criminal trials are a little more serious and a little
Mhm.
more hardcore, as is Judge Marchand. I don't think he's going to have the leeway that he does or did with the civil trials.
Yeah, and he's already threatened the attorneys with jail time.
Right.
And I noticed like when Trump comes out of the courthouse, he'll just kind of like say something for a minute, but he's not like standing like directly outside of the courthouse when he's giving his little impromptu whining, I guess that's the best word to
Yeah.
say for it.
He's whining.
Yeah, because I do. So where I'm from, we never say justice system, legal system, none of that stuff. We just say the system. You don't want to
Right.
be caught up in the system because it's
Right.
not fair for us. So when they reduced his bond, like we weren't shocked about it. It was just kind of like, I don't want to say entertaining, but it was just kind of watching other people's reaction to it. Because I don't think that they have, when they say it's a two-tier justice system, I don't think that they really know what that means.
Right.
Like, his bond being reduced is like, that's nothing. Do you know how many people were sitting on Rikers? Because at the time that, they committed whatever offense that they did, it was during somebody's election campaign and they can't appear to be soft on crime. So instead of you doing a 1 to 2 on a simple possession, you getting 20 to 25 on that. So for us, we see it as that.
Right.
And it's not fair and it is skewed. I just don't think that other people realize just how skewed it was. And it's kind of been just watching other people like, whoa, wait, that's not fair. That's not right. That's not this. That's not that. It's not, and it should not be accepted, but it's reality. So it's kind of like watching people try to come to terms with the reality of it. It's kind of interesting to watch that take place. I do think that Marchand kind of seems kind of even-handed across the board, and he just kind of seems like he don't play that regardless of who it is.
Right.
Now we'll see what happens, but that's the take that I have from him. And I think as much as people are having a hard time dealing with his bond being reduced, Trump is having that much of a hard time dealing with a judge that he's been prepared that this man is no nonsense. And I do think we're going to see him violate it. He's going to push it as far as he can push it just to test Marchand to see what he's going to do.
Right. Right.
I want to watch that play out. kind of like a little drama.
And I was going to say something here, and then I quickly realized that I would be exposing myself for my white privilege. What I was going to
What do you mean?
say, well, what I was going to say was that in the last 7 years, watching Donald Trump go through um, all the legal processes and all the delays and all the bullshit he did, I was going to say, look, it from my standpoint, an old white man, it looks like our judicial system is weak. It has no teeth. If you're rich, famous, or have a lot of money, you get away with things, and normal people don't get away with it. And our judicial system is kind of fucked up based on everything we've seen, and that's a problem we have to address. The reason I think that brings out my white privilege is what I'm saying is nothing you didn't already know a long fucking time ago.
No, I've been through that. You know what I mean? There's even
Right.
like sayings like, don't commit that crime during an election season. Don't do this, don't do that. You are not going to be treated fairly if you get put in front of a judge who is, he not looking at your case. He's not looking if you're a first time offender. He ain't looking at none of that. He's looking at, you know what, I got to be reelected. I need to appear to be tough on crime. I need to appear like I'm trying to get drugs off of the street. So there's other recourses. There's like drug programs. There's all this other stuff that they could do for you, especially like a simple possession charge, which is just like, I got caught with some drugs in my pocket, but it's not a large enough that you know I'm not selling it. You know I'm supposed to
Right.
go home and do these drugs, right? So that's a simple possession. You're not gonna get no more than like a couple years for that. But you have plenty of people doing, I'm telling you, 20, 25 years just for a simple possession. Because at the time that their case came before that judge, it was an election season. And it affects Black people more. But I don't think what white people realize is how much that affects poor white people as well. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
if you get caught with a meth pipe or anything like that during an election season and you come from the trailer park, oh, you can forget about it. That's
Yeah.
it. They
Yeah.
don't want that on their record. The heck with your record. You know what I mean? Like, we don't care about your kids growing up without a father, or we don't care about none of that stuff. I need to get reelected. And that's just what it is. And it's the same thing that's going on with Trump right now. You have judges and prosecutors and other people who are allowing their decision making to be influenced by the election season or who Trump knows or who's going to look at them this way, or maybe they eyeing a Supreme Court seat or something like that. And it is swaying decisions. So when other people are seeing like, oh, it's not fair, they're biased towards Trump, and they are biased towards Trump, but they are looking at their own selves, their own careers, their own aspirations first. And
Right.
then they are looking at Trump second. And I think that's the part that's missing is all about Trump when they're not looking at the underlying issue, because it's always going to be a Trump. It's always going to be a millionaire stealing money. It's always going to be a millionaire out here exploiting children, trafficking women, and all. It's always going to be somebody. It's
Right.
just Trump right now. But that problem, that underlying problem, is always going to exist because that's not the problem that's being acknowledged. It's Trump. And he is
Well,
not the problem with the system at all.
no, it's an innate problem, a
Mhm.
corruption within the system, and it's been going on for years and years. Somebody like me just says, "Oh, that's terrible. I've never seen that happen." But as I was saying, as much as I look at Donald Trump, feel like he's being treated unfair, there are people in the African American culture could be looking at a white guy sitting in the suburbs like me being treated differently than an African American young man from the bad part of town or just getting pulled over in a car. I don't fear
Mhm.
for anything if I get pulled over. I might get a ticket, but I don't think anything bad's going to happen. But I have enough friends of mine that are even of my age that are African American or black, and they really freak out when they get pulled over. There is a lot of inequity in our judicial system, and if we hope to maintain democracy, we got to fix that shit.
Yeah, you're giving your children a talk. When
Yeah.
they get ready to drive, they're getting that talk. And they do need to know that you cannot give, two or three of your friends a ride home after school because they don't need to see, three, four Black kids in the car. We call that rolling four deep. You cannot run with that many Black people in the car and not expect to get pulled over. You
Oh,
cannot do that. it's not acceptable. You don't do that, period, point blank. That's just how it is. And even when you look at Trump, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but when Trump was like filing bankruptcy and ripping off all his contractors and doing all this nonsense back in the day, banks would give him an allowance when he's filed bankruptcy against this bank, because
Right.
what they would say is, well, if people saw him destitute or they didn't see him in a limo or if they didn't see him in his shiny suit, then it's going to damage his brand. And the only way that he can pay us back is if he can make money off of his brand. So even though he was filing bankruptcy, the banks was still giving him an allowance so that he can appear to have money and he can use his name to generate money to pay them back. So it's not like it's because he was the president, it's because he's always been treated like that. It only elevated it when he became president. It just elevated it a little bit, but this is the system that he knows. And that's why, people say he don't believe what he's saying. No, he believes it when he says, this is a witch hunt. I don't understand why they're coming after me. This is not fair, because the system has never held him accountable. They've always let him get away with it. And anytime you can file bankruptcy and you can say, yeah, I owe you $5 million, and the bank say, okay, yeah, okay, but we're going to give you $10,000 a month so you can appear to have money.
Right.
That's the system that he knows. That's where he comes from. So when he says it's not fair, I don't understand this, that man is telling the truth, because he cannot wrap his mind around being held accountable in a system that has never for once held him accountable a day in his life, ever. He don't understand that. He don't comprehend that. He just don't. And people don't understand where he's coming from when he say that. He's a victim. He's seeing himself as a victim. Like, okay, well, I've been doing this for 70 years. Why now? Why is it a problem now? I can't steal from people all of a sudden. I've been doing this for 70 years. What's the problem? He don't get it. He don't understand it. And the crazy part about it is his supporters, they see it through his eyes.
Right.
Well, I don't understand. Why are they coming after you? They never came after you before. You did file bankruptcy before. You did bankrupt contractors and businesses. You've done that. But now all of a sudden it's a problem with it. Oh, yes, because you're running for election. That's why they're doing it.
Right.
They,
Exactly.
they see it like that. It's so crazy. I could never. I
Well,
could never.
well, with this trial coming up on April 15th, people call it the Stormy Daniels trial. It really doesn't have as much to do with Stormy Daniels and paying Stormy Daniels as it
Mhm.
did how he handled the money fraudulently and tried to hide what he was doing, which in turn would be election interference as well.
Yep.
People suggest that this court case is no big deal. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. He has 34 felony charges. He is certainly going to get convicted, multiple felonies. And
Mhm.
for me, this is the beginning of the end, because regardless of what all the other cases do, if he gets 10, say he only gets 10 of the 34 felony convictions, it's pretty much fucking over. Whether it's
Yeah.
jail time or whether it affects the voters or whatever, it's done for him. People are worried about all these others, whether they're going to happen before the election. It doesn't matter, because these felonies, these convictions are basically the death knell. The rest of it is just fucking dirt on the grave.
Yeah, the bulk of this case is falsifying business records.
Right,
He
right,
was just convicted of pretty much the same thing.
right,
It's so blatant what he did that people quit the DA's office when Alvin Bragg was dragging his feet prosecuting Trump. Like, they were just like, absolutely no, this is so flagrant. It's right here. How are you not prosecuting him? And these are like career attorneys that walked away from the DA's office because they wanted to see justice. That is like, if that doesn't tell you how strong this case is to make grown folks walk away from their job where they're making a good income, like, this is not fair, you need to handle this. If that's not enough to let you know that this case is not some fly by night, I do think people are expecting it to be salacious and all this other kind of stuff. But the good thing about that is people will tune in for the salaciousness of it,
right.
but they're going to get the facts of it. They're going to get that information that was missing. And I think that information will shock people just because they're expecting it to be about Stormy Daniels and what she said about him.
Yeah, well,
I can't repeat it.
that'll come out too, and that will upset Donald Trump to no end, because it will embarrass him. But I think Donald
Mhm.
Trump is really nervous about this particular case. When he went in to the meeting and want to get it delayed, and the
Mhm.
judge said no, that freaked him out because it's imminent. I mean, we're talking a little more than 2 weeks away. He's going on trial for 34 criminal charges, felony charges. And there's no way he's coming out of that running the fucking table. There's just no way he's doing that. And then once he
Mhm.
has multiple criminal convictions, then what? I mean, whether he gets put in jail or not, he's pretty much done. There's not much else that you can do to him. You can only convict him so many times. You can only put him in jail for so long. You can only fine him so much. And
Mhm.
whether he comes up with 175 million or not, it still puts him in a bad position because a lot of his money, or a lot of the money he's getting from other people, is fucking tied up. And those people
Yeah.
are going to want to get paid back pretty fast. So he can't delay the appeals too long because he'll never pay them back. And that's got to be making people nervous, like Chubb Insurance.
Yeah. I don't know, as just as a woman, when I think about Melania, it's like she's not a good person. She not.
No,
But it's
she's
like
not.
the embarrassment of it. You know what I mean? Just the embarrassment of it is one aspect. But then the second aspect of it is this man is supposed to leave you destitute, sweetie.
Yeah.
Because even if he dropped dead tomorrow, all of that money that's left over, it's gonna be snatched up just like that. You know what I mean? So it's just for me, when I look at her, I always just say, if I was somebody, like if I could just ask her one question, just one question, I would just ask her, was it worth it?
I
Just like,
can't
was it worth it?
I can't imagine it was, and a lot of people show sympathy. My wife has done it a couple times, sympathy for Melania. Let me
Hmm.
just say this about Melania. Melania is a fucking mercenary. She knew exactly what she was getting into. If she talked to Donald at all, and she has any
Yeah.
intelligence at all, she knew what she was getting into, and she was willing to do it to get the money and the prestige and all this stuff. She came in
Hmm.
on a fucking visa that was bullshit, and they rushed it through. Then she did the same thing with her mother.
Hmm. The chain migration that they always say, we need to get rid of that.
Right.
That's how Melania parents got here.
You know, if Melania takes a beating in this thing, I have a feeling that Melania, any monies in a divorce or something, she maybe
Hmm.
already has put away someplace.
And
But
she was smart. She was.
yeah, but I don't know that she's still married to Donald. So when some people start grabbing money, they may be going into her shit too, unless you put it into the Cayman Islands or some fucking thing. And even there, they'll probably find it. But Melania is not going to come out of this too well. And
Hmm.
as far as Barron, he's now 18 years old. Um, his prospects are not great. He's got two brothers that are criminal dipshits, a dad who's a criminal dipshit, a mother who is a greedy mercenary fucking gold digger. That's what she is.
Tell
So,
me how you really feel.
so if Barron gets taken down in this process, I don't feel bad. There's a song, and this is going to sound harsh, and well, I mean it to sound harsh. But there's a line in a song that says, "Kill it before it grows,"
Hmm.
because he'll just be the replica of Donald Trump and his brothers, as long as he's allowed to be brought up in this culture, assuming they're able to maintain it after Donald Trump is fucking broke.
Yeah, because you see with the Donald Trump and his behavior, and you see the relationship that he has with his daughters versus what he has with his sons.
Right.
It's a stark contrast. They tend, like, even with like the other one, what is her name? Start with a
Tiffany.
K, don't it? Tiffany, there you go. She just would rather stay away from her father altogether, which even though her silence is there, it speaks volumes for a woman that wants to have nothing to do with her father. Like,
Yeah.
and his just his behavior, you can just assume why. With Ivanka, she just got in, got her money, and got back out. She
Right.
wasn't
Right.
trying to have a relationship with him. He was useful and he was profitable for her. And then that was it, But his sons, they seem to, I don't know if you know who Aubrey is, but she used to be a part of Danity Kane and she
Yeah.
used to date Don Jr. And and there's always, like in Hollywood, there's always somebody talking, but people don't listen. But she came out and she said that when she was dating him, he used to just crawl into bed and just kind of like cry because his father would like give him the cold shoulder. And it wasn't until he became like ruthless and started lying and scheming and cheating and all that stuff. At that point, that's when Donald Trump started like hanging around him and talking to him and showing him just the slightest bit of affection. So he
Right.
learned that he had to be this scummy type of person to get any respect from his father. And she feels like that's what led him down the path that he's on. It's just, I couldn't imagine being like that. Even mobsters, they wouldn't involve their family in their businesses like that because they already knew the risk involved. Donald Trump didn't seem like not only did he not care, but this is the respectful thing to do. To be a cheat, be a con artist, be a liar, be all of these things. That's what you have to be to make it in this life. Like you have to be that type of person. And he molded them to be that way versus I think the girls saw it differently. They saw him in a sexist way, in a predatory type of way, where to maybe his sons didn't see him in a predatory light.
Right.
They saw him maybe as like an untouchable villain type of person. I don't know how the psychology of that works, but I do think the daughter saw him in his predatory behavior, and that
Well,
kept them at a distance from that.
talking about predatory behavior, and since you brought up Aubrey from Danity Kane, you know
Mhm.
where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
You know
Oh
where
my God.
you know where
Yeah.
Danity Kane came from, right? That was a P. Diddy program, and he put together this group.
I
And
didn't even think you would know that Eddie
oh,
Kane was.
fuck yeah, I know all kinds of shit. She's over there saying, "You'll never know." Fuck, I don't know. I used to work in the music business, but uh,
Okay, okay.
well, at least now we have what appears to be the African American version of Jeffrey Epstein in P. Diddy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Were you surprised about this news? I don't think I was because there was a lot of shit moving around P. Diddy.
No, my community wasn't surprised at all. We've known who he was since 1997. Like even before then, we knew who
Really?
he was. Yeah, we knew who he was. There was no secret of people being shot in the studio and dumping them outside and telling the police that they got shot outside the studio. We knew what happened when Piggy and Pac got murdered. We knew who he was at that point. We knew who he was with the girls. They all run in similar circles.
Right.
Uh, there's a link between them. I don't know if you know who Cuddy. I think her name is Trayvon Cuddy. She's one of Trump's co-defendants, the black
Right.
chick.
Right.
A lot of people know her from Kanye West, but with our community, when we seen her as Trump co-defendant, we was like, oh yeah, that seemed like something she would do. Because
Yeah.
before then, she was the publicist for R. Kelly. And for
Oh,
R.
right.
Kelly, a lot of the men would go out and get the girls and bring the girls back to him. But she was like one of those rare women who would actually go out and get the girls and bring the girls back to R. Kelly. And then we see her tied to Kanye West, and then we see her tied to Trump, and then we see these predatory behaviors with these types of men. And so to see her tied to Trump, it wasn't like surprised, even though other communities was like, where does black woman come from? What's she doing around Trump?
Right.
And
Right.
then they just looked at her as like blacks for Trump. And it's just like, no, that's not a blacks for Trump thing, even though they just grifted. They not like they just grifted. They just trying to get their money.
Right.
But for her, she does surround herself with predatory men. And the same thing with P. Diddy. All of the people around him, they are predatory. And we all knew this. It wasn't a secret. It was the same thing that happened with R. Kelly. Most of his victims were young black girls, and people just don't care about us like that. And so he was able to get away with it. A lot
Oh,
of when you see Epstein and all of these other guys, they have to pay their victims off. Like
yeah.
they silence their victims using money and et cetera. the black men in our community that do this to our girls, they don't have to pay their girls off. They don't have to pay you money to be quiet and shut up. You just get away with it because this is a black girl that you're taking advantage of.
Right,
It's the
right,
difference. I think R. Kelly was paying them what $1,500 to shut up and making them sign NDAs. They don't know what they signing. Attorneys wouldn't touch it because this is Puff Daddy. There's no attorney that's supposed to go up against his attorneys because their attorneys is gonna run out of money before his do. So you get to
well,
get away with that. They poor and they black. Only thing you can do is just have a story to tell, and people is not gonna listen to that story because
right. Well,
you're not gonna grab a headline,
what
basically.
people have to understand is what P. Diddy is involved in is essentially the same kind of thing that Donald Trump is involved in.
Hmm.
Crimes for decades that you get away with because you have power and fame and
Hmm.
money. You just get
Yep.
away with it. And that speaks to the judicial system. I got to think R. Kelly's loving this because it makes him look better. Fucking P. Diddy, Jesus Christ. I mean, P. Diddy has a lot more money than R. Kelly. And what's going on with that whole thing? I mean, he got raided in two or three homes. Have they
Hmm.
caught? Is he still on the run someplace? Is he still going OJ Simpson on this shit?
He not doing OJ Simpson. OJ Simpson was doing 20 miles an hour in a Bronco in LA. Puppy, he hopped on his jet and went to the Bahamas like, I'm out of here. And a lot of people don't know this either, but Russell Simmons, when he left the country, that's the reason that he left the country is because he started being exposed for the stuff that he was doing.
Right,
Um, and one of the things that Russell Simmons said, and it will it's just the most disgusting thing I've ever heard in my life when he said, hey, that's just the time period that it was. Like back in the day, that's what everybody did,
right.
as if that makes it okay.
Yeah.
Puffy, with his little statement, he said it was a witch hunt. And I'm like these predators need to come up with another slogan because they are wearing witch hunt out. It's not a witch hunt. It's just some of the stuff that what makes it what makes it egregious in my community is they use our history and our struggles to justify their actions. So I was seeing like on the Breakfast Club that, oh, there's a black man. They always want to bring the black man down. They always targeting the black man. No, they're not.
No.
Nobody has been saying this stuff about Puffy since 1996, 97. Nobody, nobody has been saying it all the way from back then to 2024, and everybody is lying.
Right.
The only difference is just now people are more open to hearing the truth and believing victims instead of shaming victims. In my community, I know how it was when I was younger. The girls took a lot of blame for it because they would say, "Oh, she's just fast. She this and she that." Like you would get labeled for that. So if you were assaulted by somebody, "Oh, you was fast. What was you doing out? Why weren't you at home?" And that's how it was. And it would just excuse the behavior and allow for them to get away with it. And with Puffy, same thing with R. Kelly. Their parents would drop their daughters off to them, leave their daughters with them. And it's
Yeah.
not just girls either, because I don't know if you know this, but
I wanted to bring that up. It's not just about young black girls, it's young black
no,
men.
he's preyed on Usher, he's preyed on Justin Bieber. These things are not secrets. Everybody has known this. Everybody has said this. Everybody has it's not a secret. The only thing is more people know about it now. That's the
Did,
only difference. We've been known that.
did
It's
you hear?
not a secret.
You're a researcher. If you haven't heard this, I know you're going to go fucking digging it out right after we get off the show. But did you hear the audio of Puffy with Meek Mill?
Hmm.
You've heard the audio.
Yeah.
Now, either there was some severe pain or some severe pleasure going on there. And I don't know how you even fucking answer that being Meek Mill. The ironic thing about it is the gay aspect of this. And, I don't have a problem with gay or straight or whatever. But
Mhm.
in that culture, in the rap business, that seems to be contrary to the image they try to portray. But it seems like with Puff Daddy, that was fucking rampant.
It is. And then when you have someone who has not just that amount of wealth, but that amount of connections
Yeah.
to where, when you have people, and there's like photos of people being like shot and everything. There's photos out there. But when you have people in the LAPD on your payroll that can make that evidence go away, that can do this, that can do that, it makes you that much more dangerous. And with Puffy too, and all of them, they were in a position of power. So
Right.
when you take a young Black guy and he's in a hood and he has to provide for his mother, his baby mama, his grandma, and everybody, this is the hope right here. And he
Right.
has talent, and you come up against somebody like Puffy, and he is just saying, okay, if you want to be on a record, or if you want this, or if you want that, this is what you have to do for me. When you have somebody who is just desperate, and not only desperate, but you know, if you don't do this, you can blackball. Ain't nobody working with you. Ain't nobody dealing with you like that.
Right.
It kind of feels like a rock and a hard place. Like, what do you do at that point? So it's very predatory. And then a lot of the ones who have name recognition, but maybe they kind of like fell off or what hit wonder, or, whatever, or maybe they wasn't responsible with their finances and they need another hit record or whatever. And you have somebody over here like, hey, I can give you that record, or do you want the world to know you broke?
Right. Well,
What do you
that's what I was going to ask you in terms of the situation and all the stories of essentially the raping of young men, drugging them and raping them. People will want to say, well, that's gay. Is it really gay, or is it about blackmail? Is it about uh, uh, just control and power and stuff like that? I mean, at
it's
this point,
all
when
of
you
that.
do that, it's not about sex as much as it is abuse and power.
Mhm. Yeah. It's about all of that. And then I think some people, they fail to see that a lot of these like drugs, like those date rape drugs that they have, those are paralyzing agents.
Right,
When you combine a paralyzing agent with alcohol, with a spiked drink, with cocaine laced in your blunt or whatever it's going to be, this person can't move. They can't defend themselves. They can't think for themselves.
right,
And a lot of that was used. And I was afraid when I was seeing how much of the date rape drug that was just doled out during the Trump administration. Like, what
right.
was these men doing with these date rape drugs?
That's a good
But then it's
question.
like, what do you think they was doing with them drugs?
Yeah,
Um, but when you have someone like Puffy who has unlimited access to those type of drugs, that type of money, that type of power, that type of influence, that type of connections, and you don't even have to be vulnerable.
right,
You just have to be somebody that's just doing the right thing, trying to make a way. That in and of itself makes you a victim or a target for a predator like that. When you know that one word from this man can get you blackballed and you ain't gonna be able to do anything after this. You just can't, you know what I mean? So I think that it wasn't just men, it wasn't just women. It was
right,
just any victim, which means it's a power thing, it's a control thing. And I think that's what it was about him. I don't even think it was had anything to do with gender. I think he just enjoyed the power that he had over other people, their careers, their
right.
lives, their family. He thrived off of that, which is just so evil. Some of them are just predatories. They just go after girls or they just go after this group of people. He would like anybody could get it. That's how much power and control that he craved. It's just
Well, we've seen it with the wealthy with Jeffrey Epstein. Now we're seeing it in the
mhm,
entertainment business, and the common thread here is it's rich and powerful, rich and powerful.
yeah.
What do you think the odds are we have stuff like that going on in politics? Because they're in
Oh,
the same
please.
situation. And how long before that gets exposed? I mean, we know what Madison Cawthorn said about the orgies and
Hmm.
about this and that. That would not surprise me. People with power do some fucked up shit.
Hmm. I think with politics, it might be a little bit more, I don't know how to say this. It's
Okay,
a
go
little
ahead.
bit
Go
more,
go ahead.
it's a
Go ahead
little
and
bit
say it.
more,
They're
it's
all
harder to black, it's harder to blackmail somebody when everybody is participating.
well, yeah, that's true, but we're talking about old white men, so over and above what they're going to do, they need a pretty serious supply of Viagra too in order to actually accomplish anything. So it's a different circumstance. But I think anytime you get power and money like that, people just like to see how fucking far they can go. And then when they go that far, they
Mhm.
go a little farther and then it gets out of hand.
Yeah, and it with politics is more like clicky as well. I don't think that they stand when it comes to passing welfare or whatever, they can be divided on that all day. But when it comes to exposing that type of behavior, oh, they get together real quick. Ask Madison Carthon.
Yeah.
Where he at? You know what I mean? So it's like they will come together when they have to protect themselves. And since they're all partaking in it, anybody from the outside, it's pretty difficult to break that barrier.
Right.
But I will say this barriers have been broken lately. And I
Yeah.
think when that political barrier is broken, it is going to be a floodgate. I don't say if it's going to happen, I just say when it's going to happen. And I think that we could be closer to that just because of how sloppy they are with it.
Right.
You have your old school Republicans, how disciplined they were and how they can keep it together in front of the cameras and they can do their stuff behind closed doors or whatever. It's not like that anymore. They
No.
are very cutthroat. They will expose you in a minute. They don't care if it's detrimental to themselves or they have that mindset. If I'm going down, I'm taking everybody with me type of mindset. They're so sloppy with their behavior. I think that's what's going to trip them up. And then also some of them are very arrogant. They're very cocky. They don't see that it could happen to them. So I think that will make them less careful than they normally are. And then I do think a lot of the old school people, they're kind of reading that writing on the wall. And that could be some of the reason why some of them are just backing out before it gets to that because they can see it happening.
Well, I think they're sloppy because, like Donald Trump, they've gotten away with it from decades. They just assume they're going
Mm-hmm.
to get away with it. And
Mm-hmm.
I've said this before, and I'm curious as to what you think. With Donald Trump did one thing positively for this country: all this criminality, all this corruption that was under the radar that nobody ever saw, or they had reasonable or plausible deniability, was brought
Yeah.
to the surface like a blister, and now everybody knows. And now that everybody knows, and we have social media and all these things,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like as we're going through 2024, coming to a reckoning with the wealthy people who take advantage, the fucked up people that take advantage. I mean, P. Diddy, up to recently, was apparently untouchable. Not today. Donald Trump was untouchable. Now he's got 91 felony charges. Um, I think we're coming to a reckoning point, and I think it's positive. It's going to be messy and ugly, but it's going to be important to do to or in order to get beyond it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at a community event yesterday, and I always call them kids, even though they're adults. But one of the kids, he just said 2024 is the year of exposing because
Seems like it.
everybody gets exposed. Everybody can get it. And I'm just like, yeah, that's true. And I do think that the more it is exposed, the more people feel, I don't want to say emboldened, but the more safe someone will feel coming out and speaking against it because they feel like they will be believed. They feel like they will be heard.
Right.
And I do think for a lot of time, just the power, the money, the prestige, the influence, the connections that kept a lot of people silent. Um, and a lot of people just afraid. You think about Donald Trump's other 26 victims that he has and
Right.
what they had to go through and why they didn't speak up and why they didn't speak out. But what happens is, once one domino fall, they all fall.
Right.
So first it's E. Jean Carroll. Now he's going on trial. And then it's like once they see that he's not this big bad monster that they thought he was, and they see that he can be touched and he can be held accountable, then that just kind of gives them permission to come out and tell their story. And I do think it's just, a lot of people they just don't feel safe to do that and it is just the threats of what could happen to them if they do is it's pretty sad but for a long time women we don't say stuff like that because we do get looked at different and we do get blamed for a lot of stuff that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna wind things down here, but I wanted to bring up something. We know that there's all kinds of problems for the Republicans in the House of Representatives.
Mhm.
We've got Ken Buck and the other guy leaving. That's bringing the margin down to a very thin sliver. And I have a feeling that there might be other people wanting to jump ship before they go down over the cliff in November. And that will put us in a situation where maybe the Democrats have the majority and we don't have to worry about kicking out Mike Johnson. Um, but Hakeem Jeffries would be the Speaker of the House, which would be wonderful. Now, somebody asked Marjorie Taylor Greene, why did you do that? Why did you put um,
I
Mike Johnson
don't know
up?
why they asking that help for anything, but go ahead.
She said, well, even if we do end up with Hakeem Jeffries as the Speaker of the House, it's not my fault. Well, of course, it's not your fault. It was the dumbest thing to do. Not only Democrats are laughing at you, but the Republicans are pissed off at you for doing it. That's the last thing you should have done with so little time left in the session. But she's just a reactionary and she's not very bright. And she may have just handed the Democrats the majority in the House ultimately.
Yeah. I just want to, something that's popped in my head from what we were talking about before, how women, we take a lot of brunt of what happened to us. It just popped in my head with E. Jean Carroll. There's millions of men and women who are excusing Donald Trump's behavior because it was assault, not technically a rape in their mind. And
Right.
that's just an example of some of the stuff as women we have to deal with. Like, oh, well, he didn't do this, 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 and this, so it's okay. But that's, I just popped in my head. But anyway, I think with Marjorie Taylor Greene, like expecting for her to take responsibility for anything is just, it's just a mute point it's just a mute point. But I do know when Ken Buck left, I remember him saying something about like, don't focus on me, worry about the other three.
Yeah.
And I do think like, okay, so we've seen one other, so it's got to be at least two more in there somewhere. But I'm wondering what is going to be. I know that for him to say that there had to have been some conversations going on, and he respectfully not name dropped. But I do think it's two more people when he said worry about those other three. So it's got one other person came out, I think it was Gallagher, that was his name,
Right.
which lets me know that he's had conversations with two other people that we don't know about yet.
Right.
And I'm wondering if they're just waiting for the right time to stick it to somebody in their district. If maybe they're trying to like pull some strings behind the scenes, like I'm gonna give my notice unless y'all do X, Y, and Z. I think that could be going on. Um, but I do think it's going to be two more, and I think it'll be sooner than we expected, especially if they keep doing what they're doing right now. It's just kind of like if I go to my boss and I say I'm quitting my job because you are just a jerk, you're hard to work with, you won't want to compromise, and you just mean and you're just a horrible person. I don't like it.
Right.
And then that manager don't correct their behavior, and then person after person after person after person quit. You can't go to HR and say, why is our retention rate so low? You can't do that. So it's
No.
kind of like people were telling them, people were showing them, and now people are just walking out and they're still doing the same thing over. I don't think we're going to have a different result than Buck and Gallagher. I think it's two, at least two more. But I saw an interview with, I can't remember her name, a woman in the Senate that was just saying, this party is turning into Trump, and I'm thinking independently, which is just letting us know that she don't want to be a Democrat, but she wants to switch to independent.
Right. That was Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. And
There you go.
frankly, she's a fucking coward. She should have been able to say this 3 years ago, but now
They all cowards, ain't they?
she wants to jump off the train when she's assured that it's going over the cliff. What some of these people in the House may be doing is exactly what Gallagher did. I mean, he gave
Mm-hmm.
them a big fuck you because if he would have resigned on the spot prior to April 2nd, there would have been a special election and they presumably would have got another Republican in there. He said, no, I'm waiting until the 19th, which means there'll be nobody to replace him up until November. So he kind of told the Republicans to fuck off and deal with it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have two more or three more people that want to do this. They may be
Mm-hmm.
waiting before the drop dead date where they
Yeah,
can't save themselves.
I think at this point within the Republican Party, the money isn't in the House. It's not in the Senate. The
Right.
money is going against that. That's where they're getting their money from. And I do think those who are leaving, I think that's what they're seeing, and I think that's how they're looking at it. What I don't want to see happen is I don't want to see Democrats keep Mike Johnson in the House. And let's just face it, he can't stay without the Democrats' help. It just
Right.
is what it is.
Right. Right.
I don't want to see them keep him in the House off of principle and just say, well, we can't let him get fired because he did the right thing. principle is out the window because these people over here, they don't care about principle. So I don't want
No.
to see them keep him around for principle. I want to see if they are going to make that decision. I want to see them get something from it. I want them, we can keep you as Speaker of the House if we get this Ukraine funded passed, or we can keep you as Speaker of the House if this, and this. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but if they keep him in the House on principle, I don't want to see that happen.
I don't
I
think
don't
they
even know how to verbalize how that would make me feel if they kept
I don't think they will
Scout
because
Mike on there and didn't get nothing.
they
That
have
would just,
they
you
have
want to see
nothing
me
to
pissed off? Let them not get nothing out of that.
they have nothing to gain either way. If they don't save Mike Johnson, people might say,
Yeah,
well, we'll never get anything done in the House. Well, the
people don't
fact
get nothing
that
done anyway.
you're not going to get it done anyway, the fact that we got back past the budget bill um, is is enough to get that out of the way. Now, keep in mind the budget bill, it took so long to get this fucker done that they got to do it again in September. It's not that far out. They're going to have to do this bullshit again, but things will be a
Not
lot
only
different.
that, but look at the budget that Republicans are putting on the table.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane that you want to strip people from their health insurance, that you want to raise the cost of medications again. It's just, it's not a serious bill. I don't know. I think that maybe they thought because they got everything that they wanted in a border deal, even though they shot it down, I think that they feel like maybe that's how it will go again with the budget. I really do feel like they think that.
Yeah.
They think that. And so maybe, maybe the Democrats set a bad example by signing off on the border deal and giving them everything that they wanted, because now they think, okay, if I act crazy, they'll just give in. I do want to see them play hardball as far as like keeping him in his seat. They're not gonna get nothing done no way. You might as well try to get something from it. And as much as he say, I pray to Jesus and Jesus is in control of everything, he don't believe that. He don't
No.
believe it at all, because the moment that they passed that budget and Marjorie Green came out and showed her butt, he went on vacation.
Right.
He
Right.
ran away
Exactly.
from that problem. He didn't stay and face it. He didn't stay and leave it in Jesus' hand. He didn't do none of that. He ran away. That's just what he did. So when he comes back, if you want to keep your seat, this is what we need. And I don't want to see Democrats be soft on him because he doesn't deserve it.
I think
None of it.
I think the Democrats made a chess move with that border bill.
Hmm.
They knew the Republicans very well. Give them everything you want. And I said this, while this was going on, I said, if you gave them everything you want, they still will not agree to it because they don't want Joe Biden to win. And I think Joe Biden knew that. I think the
Hmm.
Democrats knew that. So, yeah, we're ready. Let's go. But they wouldn't sign
We
off
saw
on it.
it like we
Yeah.
saw it like that.
Yeah.
They saw it as they had the upper hand, that they were the ones in control. That's how they saw that. And so I think for them, when that happened, in their mind, they can do that again.
Right.
And I
But
think that we have to show them that they're wrong.
the Democrats basically stole a talking point from them. They really can't bitch about the border anymore because of what they fucked up there. And I think Biden and the Democrats saw that as a possible play. Okay, give them what
Mhm.
they want. They won't pass it anyway. Then it's their fault, not our fault. And so I think that worked out pretty well for Joe Biden and the Democrats, because some of the stuff that was in that bill is stuff that Democrats would never want. And they get the credit for being for it, but they don't have to deal with it because the Republicans are dumb motherfuckers.
Yeah, then it left out so much. Like it left out a pathway to citizenship. It left out things for dreamers. Like there was just so much left out of it. And it was just to take away that talking point. It was just basically to call a bluff. You want to play
Yeah.
chicken? Let's go. We see how this ends. But I don't think Republicans saw it that way. And I do think that for them, it looked like they had the upper hand. Like, we are in control. We get to set the rules for the budget. We can pass it if we wanted to pass or not. I think they saw it through a narcissist brain. That's how they looked at that situation. They don't
Right.
even realize they got played. They don't see that at all. And it doesn't help that they go to Fox News and Newsmax and Steve Bannon, whoever, and they just hype them up and they just reinforce what they've already thought. It's
Yeah.
kind of like they don't live in reality in a way. They don't see it the way that we see it. And
No,
I do think that the budget's been passed now. It's just time to play a little bit hardball and show them what's up. But that's just me. I'm not a career politician.
well,
Maybe the Democrats know what they're doing, but I would like to see them get something out of this.
absolutely. Well, old soul, we're going to wrap things up. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
I
It's always a
forgot
pleasure.
somebody, I forgot
Yeah,
to say this. Somebody wrote you an email and said that I should go speak in the women's prison. I'm
yeah.
going to do that, but they've already approved my presentation. My background is already put through. But what's holding it up is I want my mother to come with me because it's holding it up because that's the prison that she used to be in. So
Yeah.
she had her record seal. Like I was like pushing everybody to vote. And she always called it the $1,600 vote because she had to pay $800. My stepdad had to pay $800 to have their record sealed. And once their record was sealed, then they were able to vote again. So she always
Wow.
called it the $1,600 vote. The first time she ever voted was for Joe Biden during the pandemic. And she did it for me. And I was like, oh my God. But anyway, so she does have her record sealed, but because she used to live in that prison, she did have to disclose that, and that's holding up whatever. And I just wanted to let that person know that I am going to do that as soon as my mother's approval goes through. So I
You
just wanted
know,
to say that.
some people must have felt sorry. I was talking about it and how you got asked to talk and stuff like that. Somebody
Mhm.
actually came to me and asked me to talk, and it's an
Yeah.
interesting opportunity. Yeah, it's a company that is court reporters, and this
Okay.
woman was a head of the court reporters in Washington D.C. So she's asked me to come to Washington D.C. on November 7th.
Look at
That would be
you.
fucking awesome. My wife and I will go out there 2 days after Donald Trump gets his ass kicked. We'll do our talk and we'll enjoy the pleasures of DC when the Republicans are eradicated.
All
I'm looking forward to it.
right.
I'm looking
I'm
forward to
happy
it.
for you.
Well, yeah, it's exciting. I appreciate her calling and wanting me to talk. And the funny
Yeah.
thing is, she says I'll have to insist on one thing. It's about your swearing, and I go, well, I cannot swear. She goes, no, you absolutely fucking swear like you do on the show. Well, I don't want you to not swear. I said, well, I can do that too. I can do that too.
That you can.
That I can. And if that's what she wants, I'm all about being a pleaser. I'll
There
give you
you go.
what you want. I don't even know what the fuck I'll talk about, but I'll come up with something. Anyway, we'll wrap things up. For those people listening, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day. Old Soul, thank you for coming by.
Yeah.
I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.